Are you a hardworking dad, juggling family responsibilities while dreaming of building wealth through real estate? Welcome to the Invested Fathers Podcast, where we explore how to balance investing and fatherhood. I'm your host, Kenny Johnson, founder of East West Capital. Over the past 5 years, I've been buying real estate to free up my time and secure my family's future. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Join me as we navigate the real estate world together, building wealth and strengthening our families. As my grandma always said, East West, home's best.
I've never been a dad. I went straight from no kids to grandkids. I met my wife late in life, and she already had 5 grandkids when I met her. That being said, I have come through my entrepreneurial career serving families. I've been a serial entrepreneur all my life. I have done everything from own radio stations and photography studios to direct selling to being in the oil and gas and the real estate business. I've got dozens of companies behind me, some good, some bad. Made a lot of money in some, and some of them cost me a lot of money. That's kind of the way it works in the entrepreneurial world. But I'll tell you one thing: of all in every one of those money pits that I got into, it was a wealth of knowledge. There was a wealth of education there. So I wouldn't change a thing. I was on a Zoom earlier with somebody, and we were talking about people who second guess their lives, and I am a product of my life. All the warts and the gray hair and everything that I did wrong has brought me to where I am today. And I'm not going to be ashamed of the fact that I live an absolutely amazing lifestyle. I have a lot more ahead of me. I've got plans to make more money and help more people. That all being said, I want to get back to the fact that I believe that entrepreneurialism in all of its fashion, all of its shapes, is the best way for somebody to create a business and provide an amazing lifestyle for their family. Whatever way that is. If it's in real estate, so be it. If it's in direct sales, so be it. If it's drilling oil, so be it. I know there's a lot of people out there that have made a ton of money being high-level C-suite executives for Fortune 50 companies. Donald Trump, I guess, is an example. Jack Welch is another one. Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE. They make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But to get to that level, the dues you have to pay and the time you have to devote to that company usually predicated on you giving up time, energy, and love with your family. Most of the people who get to the level that they do in those C-suite offices with Fortune 500, 100, or even 50 companies, they spend so much time chasing that level, that promotion, that position. There's probably a divorce or two in their history, and then there's some unhealthy personal habits, situations. Mm-hmm. Not saying that doesn't happen in the entrepreneurial world too. I know some entrepreneurs who have sacrificed their family on the altar of success, and it happens. But I'm here to tell you that it can be done the other way. I know many people who have made enormous successes of themselves partnering with their family and bringing their family along with them on that ride, on that roller coaster. And typically the people who are most successful on that ride are the ones who have the support of a loved one. Their wife is on that roller coaster ride with them, helping them along the line, helping them all the way, supporting them, picking up the slack in areas where the slack needs to be picked up. I relish the opportunity, and I want to express my gratitude to you for allowing me to tell my story to your audience. And I hope that I'm able to positively impact the people who hear me.
Amen. Thank you for mapping all that out, Jim. Do you go by Jim or James?
Jim, James, hey you. Just don't call me late for lunch.
Hey you. Oh my goodness. Late for lunch. I love that. I'll tilt this down just a hair.
I've been called a lot of things in my life.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to start by asking how things are going and just jump right in.
You know, Kenny, things are good. Things are really great. Things are really great. If I complain, nobody listens. So what do I have to say?
Perfect.
But
you're not bringing anyone down.
My life is great. I exited a family company last year, and I got a pretty nice exit. There were some issues with it that were unpleasant, and I had to make some sacrifices, but things happen. But other than that, I live a great life. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but most of my lifetime has been spent in productive and successful endeavors. Some of those endeavors have not been that successful, but I've learned a lot from them anyway. Growing up, I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. It goes all the way back to my great granddad. He came to Texas as a teenager in the late 1800s. He started a business that burned down, picked back up, went to work at a sawmill, wound up buying the sawmill, turned that sawmill into the largest lumber company in Texas, and along the way got into the oil business and ranching business. He became very successful in both of those, bought newspapers, radio stations, built a very large empire for himself, and started from nothing, literally started from nothing. I think that's probably where I get my entrepreneurial spirit from, and my belief in the capitalistic system, which I am a very fervent proponent of. When he passed, he left his empire to his two sons, who proceeded to dismantle much of it, because if they couldn't agree on something, they just got rid of it. And so they sold millions and millions of dollars of property, would be worth hundreds of millions of dollars today. And it is what it is, but that's the way it is. My family history comes from one of those two sons, and I've been blessed because of the successes that they had to have lived a very successful life, a life of privilege, if you will. Mm-hmm. My dad followed in the same footsteps. He was an entrepreneur. He was a captain in the Army Air Corps. When he rotated out of the Army Air Corps here in Midland, where I live, he got in the oil business, started his own oil operating company, was a dry land farmer, some other things. Significant, for the most part, he started as an entrepreneur. He didn't get a W-2 job. He went out and started his own business. The last W-2 I received that was not from a company that I either owned or was a partner in while I was in college. And no, I'm not going to tell you how long ago that was. It was a while.
Yeah.
I believe in a person being able to live his dreams and make those dreams come true. I'm a very persistent person. The number one quote that I live by is Winston Churchill's never give in except in matters of honor and good sense. And my persistence is legendary. In fact, there's times that I've probably persisted to the point of it being a bad idea, of not giving up when I could. So I'll caution I'll put that little cautionary note out there. But I believe, and I've spent most of my business career supporting people to start their own businesses. I did it for the most part in the direct selling business. I was in that business for 30 years. And I think that it's one of the easiest, one of the best ways for somebody to start a business. The price of entry is low and the upside is humongous. I've moved over to real estate. I'm building a fund to help non-real estate professionals to invest money in the real estate business. Most of my experience in real estate and with real estate investors has been, it's somebody who knows somebody who has a project that they want to raise money for, but the prospective investor doesn't know anything about real estate business. He doesn't know has no way to vet the project, has no way to do due diligence on the operator. And so they wind up putting their money in something pretty much blind. Mm-hmm. And basically winding up trusting it to the luck of the draw as to how well the project does. And frequently it doesn't, unfortunately. My efforts are going to be to look for the best operators in certain asset classes and bring investors' money to people who I know are the absolute top-notch cream of the cream. They've been successful in X number of projects. They've returned X amount of money to their investors. Their investor history is impeccable. That way, I don't have to worry about the way the project is. That doesn't guarantee that everything's going to go right, but at least it's going to ensure as much as possible that the project will be successful.
That's great. And everything's good. I do want to backtrack. I want to dive a little bit deeper into, you've done so many businesses. One of the things I feel like is really interesting to me was, I'll call it your unique ability, your superpower of persistence. Could you share with me a story of, I know you mentioned like the one it was like almost to a fault. It was to a fault, but give me a win of, this is why I'm legendary. in my persistence, like this story happened?
Oh man, that's just so much in my life right there. I'll tell the story about my multifamily experience. Most people get in the multifamily business by syndication. Somebody has a project and they're syndicating it, so they invest as a limited partner in the deal. Well, I bought the project. I just bought the complex. Bought three, four of them, and I knew nothing as well as I'm wont to do. I knew nothing about the multifamily business. I jumped in with both feet into the deep end and had to learn to swim. The projects were not in the best part of town. They were in Milwaukee. I wound up there because of another business partner I was with. If you look up the definition of slumlord, there's my picture. They were not the best projects in town. Going south is probably a generous description, but I don't quit. I'm going to make these things work if it's the last thing I do, and maybe it will be. I'm not going to go into the details about the projects and the negative capabilities or whatever. But what I did, though, was I kept at it. I learned more. I got in with some multifamily groups and learned about how economics with multifamily projects goes. And I'll be perfectly honest, the economy was good to me. Both the economy and the way the path of business was going in that area was good to me. And I may not, so all things being told, I got out of those projects in 2019 and 2020. Came out nearly seven figures to the good. It was definitely a learning experience. It was by the grace of God that I didn't lose my shirt. The real thing was that I always was looking for the positive way. I was always, boilers blowing up in January. In Milwaukee, I probably have a pretty good idea what the temperatures are like in Milwaukee in January. And when you have a hot water heating system and the boiler blows up, that's really not exactly the best thing in the world. It had a fire in one of the buildings, burned up quite a bit of the building. One freeze damage when the boiler stopped, it broke pipes, all sorts of stuff. My insurance had to fight tooth and nail to get the insurance payoff. Took forever, but finally got that. And that's one of the things you've got to understand. You've got to fight your way through the down stuff, through the hard stuff. Like I said, I came out to the good, did well. I know a lot about multifamily now. I know that I don't like tenants and toilets, so I'm not going to be an operator. That's just no. But I know good operators. I know people who operate very well. So I plan to, those are the people I'll partner with in my future endeavors.
Okay. Great story. The beginning part of the story in regards to, I decided to just skip the whole syndication step and just buy some things. I think that's awesome. And I'm learning about you in light of your risk tolerance. I see you as someone who hates being vanilla or average. You're rather going to go down swinging or you're going to be the champion. Those are the two options.
Yeah. Talking about risk tolerance, I grew up in the oil and gas business. The oil and gas business is extremely lucrative. I made a lot of money. My family's made a lot of money in the oil and gas business. You can also lose your butt really fast in the oil and gas business. The risk tolerance, you have to be very risk tolerant because it is a very risky business. They say the average is 1 in 9. So if you knew that if you were going to get into a project that you had 8 chances to fail and only 1 to win, how willingly would you get into that? Not very many. But on the other hand, you can have 30, 40, 51 upside. So it works both ways. I'm pretty high risk tolerant because that's the way I grew up. That was just the way it was around here in my childhood. You asked earlier about what it was like to grow up. My family was in the oil business. And my dad, I came from a successful oil business background, going all the way back to my great granddad. My dad continued that business, and in the ranching business, we did very well in some areas, sometimes not so good, because that's just the way the business works, the way the oil business and the ranching businesses go. But I had a nice life. I had a great growing up, went to good schools. We lived out in the country on a ranch.
Mm-hmm.
Got to live the tromping around in the field, shooting rabbits, that kind of stuff. It's the dream life of a kid. And so I grew up, it was a nice way of growing up.
Yeah. You mentioned your granddad, or great granddad, two sons, quarreled, squandered it a little bit. Sounds like your dad was a recipient of some of that in regards to getting some money or a step ahead. If you could give some attributes of your dad, I know you said you just grew up in a oil and gas, environment.
Yeah. My dad was very smart. His dad was a brilliant geochemist and geologist. My granddad, my paternal grandfather, drove an ambulance in World War I, was at a very high level in the War Materials Command in World War II. He ran some ironworks, some mining companies, that sort of thing. And because of that, my dad was blessed to get a very high quality education. He went to prep school. If you were in the ROTC programs in the prep schools, you went straight into the military as an officer. And that's what my dad did. And that was because World War II had started, and they called him up to be in the Air Corps. He was a navigator and bombardier, served all through World War II, retired. He was as one of the trainers at the Air Force Base here in town. When they retired, they riffed a bunch of people, reduction in force, a very large number of officers. And he stayed here, and he got in the oil business. He married my mom. It was my maternal granddad, who I was the beneficiary of his will. But I think the persistence and the work ethic that I have now is probably in a large degree to the work ethic that my dad had. He was probably one of those entrepreneurs that worked a little too hard and didn't spend enough time with his family, but we still had a great time. We got to go to the ranch. We grew up on the ranch. And when we were on the ranch, it was all kid time. It was a great life. I learned a lot from him. More, I think probably just thinking back to your question, probably what I learned more than anything else was work ethic and persistence, stick-to-itiveness, and doing the right thing. His ethics were top of the shelf. And that's one of my core values is ethics and integrity. And I think that's gone a long way towards, it's cost me for sure, because I got taken advantage of by some unethical people that lacked integrity. But on the other side, again, like I said, I wouldn't change it.
It cost you money,
Press position,
yeah,
whatever.
Okay. But I feel like that's what integrity, it's choosing the right thing when no one knows that you're doing it, and doesn't always mean that you're going to come out on top. If you work through ethics and integrity, the bad guys win sometimes. And I think, honestly, maybe I can transition to your faith and through that. What is it about integrity or ethics why is that a core value for you? How is that instilled one of the main things that makes up Jim Blakemore?
I think, Kenny, the reason, having been a victim of unethical and people with less than high ethics and low integrity, and being a victim, if you will, I would say that what I learned was that I didn't want to be that. If I didn't like it, somebody else was going to like it, and I wasn't going to be the person who inflicted that on somebody. I think you go just as far in life by being in integrity and having high ethics. One of my fundamental beliefs and it's bitten me in the butt a couple times, but one of my fundamental beliefs is that people are fundamentally good. On the average, most people are good people, and that they have high ethics, but there's a few out there who don't. And sometimes you just have to sort your way through them and find the right ones. It was Ronald Reagan who said, trust but verify. And I've learned that lesson. So I trust, but I verify. And I'm a hell of a lot stronger on the verification than I used to be.
are there certain questions or characteristics? Like I had a guy on here one time and said, the first thing I ask or find, if I want to find out if this person is someone I want to do business with, someone I want to bring into my inner circle, I look at how long have they been married, and are they happily married? That was one of his things. Do you have a litmus test or something that maybe it's like a sneaky way of finding out if they're one of the good?
I look at who they're associated with.
Okay.
I look at how long they have had those associations. If they've been through business partner, if I talk to somebody who was in business with them 10 years ago or 5 years ago and say, hey, would you do another deal with them? And they say, maybe. They're probably not going to say, hell no, I wouldn't cross the street to talk to that guy. They're not going to tell you that. But at the same time, you can get a good feeling from what they do tell you. You know, they're going to be, it's not so much what they say, but how they say it that I key in on.
Cool. Okay, Jim, I'm going to switch gears a bit. You got married later in life where the lady that is your wife now has some grandkids. So you've somewhat walked into granddad all of a sudden and skipped the father stage.
I went from no kids to grandkids like that. And when I met Holly, she had 5 grandkids. She had 4 grown daughters and 5 grandkids already. We've added 5 more grandkids along the way. So I have 10 grandkids now. And one of the things I'm doing to give back is I'm starting to mentor some of them, the ones that seem to have an interest in it, in entrepreneurship and personal development. I've been in personal development now for 30 years. I've been a trainer in goal setting. I've been a trainer in teaching people how to set goals, teaching people some of the roadmaps to success, that sort of thing. I have a multi-$1,000 library of personal development books and tapes. Now I'm trying to give back by teaching people how to mentor people, that sort of thing. Teaching people how to be an entrepreneur, how to be a capitalist.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're specifically looking at the grandkids, and I'm assuming they're of all ages. Are we like teenagers to
from
20s?
From 7 to 25.
Okay, perfect. So that's a ripe age of moldable minds that have a lot of time to say, hey, if I could just get these things right now, then just give it some consistency and you'll be ahead in a few years. What would be some advice you would give to, I mean, I'm 36. Our audience, invested fathers, I would think most of the audience right now is around my age, maybe mid-20s, but maybe mid-40s, maybe 50, I don't know. But like in that stage of life, what would be something you would say to them in regards to self-development and growth?
Let's talk a little bit about business first. And I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was I bounced around like a ping pong ball in a wind tunnel. In the first 40 years of my business career, I was probably involved in a dozen different endeavors. And most of the people I see who are successful in business have a track record of being in or around the same business type. As Malcolm Gladwell talks about, they've done their 10,000 hours in a business. I've got the good old, oh, look, a squirrel syndrome. To heck with what I've just spent the last 4 weeks building. I'm going to go build this thing. And so focus on something. Find something that trips your trigger and focus on it. Do your due diligence. The holes. I'm going to use this as an example. One of the companies that I started built workforce housing out of shipping containers. I had this great idea to build housing out of shipping containers, and I won't go into if we can talk about that on a future podcast if you want to. But I thought, hell, they're portable. Let's build houses on them, and we'll move the houses to wherever they need to go. And they're smaller than mobile homes. The only trouble is, what I didn't factor into the equation is that they weigh 12,000 pounds apiece, and you have to have heavy equipment to move them. You can't just hook them to the back of a pickup truck and pull them around. So The company did okay, but not. We got buried in COVID. Everything we were doing came crashing down around us because of COVID, because we were building workforce housing for the oil fields out here in West Texas. And COVID, the oil fields died. The oil business just died completely, and the oil field housing market hasn't come back yet. So getting back to your question, focus on something. Find something that you have a passion for. Now, I'm going to warn you, don't get a passion for classical literature and expect to make a lot of money at it. Don't, unless you're Barbara O'Keeffe, you're probably not going to have a passion for painting and make a lot of money at it. Even Barbara O'Keeffe didn't make a lot of money until her paintings really weren't worth much until after she passed away. So find something that'll make you some money. Mm-hmm. Another thing I've noticed about most successful entrepreneurs is they started early. They had their lemonade stand when they were 10, 15, and they figured out a way to make money. I was just reading about Elon Musk the other day. His first big strike was 21, 22. Everybody hears about his founding of PayPal, but I think PayPal was like his second or third endeavor. He'd already put several $1 million in his pocket from other endeavors. Look to what it can be that can help drive your success and help prime the pump there. Everybody says chase your passion. I hear that all the time. Everybody says, oh yeah, find your passion and chase your passion. Your passion make sure your passion is a passion that will write checks for you too.
Exactly. So you're giving back through mentoring. You've got this ripe, 7-year-old at your disposal now. Just kidding, not really. But you've got an audience. In light of what you just said in regards to, hey, pick something that's going to make you money, write your checks. What are some things that you feel would go against that mindset, but are still valuable returns that you've seen in your own life? And I even would ask if you have a failure in this. That you mentioned the shiny object syndrome. Like, oh look, squirrel. But something else that's on your mind that you could.
Out of college, I bought a radio station. I got my degree in television and film production. Came out of college, found a local radio station that was for sale. Knew nothing about the radio business. Knew nothing about managing anything, but I did know enough to hire management. I highly leveraged the purchase. And this was back during the late 70s. Weren't around, but in the late 70s, the interest rates hit 20%. So I couldn't get ahead. I just couldn't get ahead. My dream was to build a chain of radio stations, to have the maximum amount that was allowed by law at the time. But everything I brought back went right back to debt service. No matter how much money I made, I couldn't get ahead because the economic climate just was not there. And I was a brand newly minted, out of college businessman with no business experience. I was able to, it didn't cost me a whole lot of money. I was able to sell the station, but unfortunately, I sold it for what I bought. The price of the sale was for what I had in it. Mm-hmm. But the people who bought it defaulted on the loan and left me hanging with a bunch of money out. That was something that didn't go as well as planned. Learned a lot, but didn't go as well as planned. Now, life lessons learned, and this is a lesson I'm still learning, is if you're going to do something, learn about it. Don't just jump into something like I did with the apartment buildings. Don't jump in with both feet, not knowing how the business works. That was the mistake I made in the container business. I didn't understand the downside of working with containers. There was a definite upside. There was a lot of practicality to it, but there were some problems associated with it that I didn't factor into the equation. I got into the radio business because I started the campus radio station, and I was one of the people involved in it, but it was not a commercial radio station. It didn't have to go out and sell to make money to pay the bills. And so learning about that, I learned, one, you got to have a good business operation. You got to make money to pay the bills. Two, You've got to make sure that the economic climate, you got to watch out for the economic climate. I'll tell you one thing. Owning that radio station was probably one of the most fun things I've ever done. We had more fun with that radio station. You can have a blast with a radio station. You can trade stuff out. The barter system was well and good then. One of the things we did, we were the radio station you had to buy. We were the number one AM in the market. So if anybody was bringing a show to town, they had to buy us. They had to buy advertising from us. And this promoter was bringing the Beach Boys to town. And they were going to put them in the Coliseum standard concert. I had a very creative promotions director. He was really good. And so he said, listen, it's the Beach Boys. Let's have some fun with this. And so we made a beach party. We built a stage in the parking lot and brought in hundreds of truckloads of sand and covered the parking lot with sand. And we had a beach party, booths for trinkets and knickknacks and all of that. And the promoters liked it so much, they said, we're going to do this in other places. And what they did was we did a cross promote. We did it in San Antonio. They did the same thing in San Antonio, built a stage outside and filled the parking lot with sand. In Corpus Christi, they just built a stage on the beach and did it on the beach. And we gave away a trip to San Antonio and a trip to Corpus Christi. And then the Corpus Christi station gave away a trip to Midland and a trip to San Antonio. And we cross-promoted all the way around. We had a blast. People talked about that concert for years. And we had a mascot like the pro ball teams have nowadays. It was a woodpecker. We call him the bird. You would be astonished at what somebody can get away with when they're inside one of those suits. They will do stuff that you would never do without a suit on.
Yeah.
But we would walk into stores and do stuff. We would have that bird walk into the store and start talking to kids or all sorts of stuff. We just had a great time with that. So let me just say this in that context. You may lose money, but look for the good. Always look for the good. And no matter what you're doing, have fun. If you can't have fun doing what you're doing, find something else.
Man, you did say in the beginning, hey, I basically broke even on this project. But man, you started really lighting up when like your face, everything started just reliving those memories of those years. And hey, it's good to have money. You can have some freedom with money. You can go out and find some fun things to do with money. But when you're not finding money, you're working hard, and hopefully you're not just this toiler who is hating their life every minute, begrudgingly getting out of bed, just hoping and praying for something different. You're having fun. Jim, we are just about out of time here. Thank you so much for being here. I'd love for you to leave my audience with a final takeaway, maybe something I didn't even ask, but if you could speak to my audience today of the Invested Father, speak to me, what would be some words of wisdom that you would impart to me?
Wow. That's a heavy load. Kenny, let me tell you something. The audience we're talking to are fathers, are people who have families and objectively are trying to do better and better for their families. My philosophy is you can always do better for yourself than you can be doing for somebody else. You've heard all through my interview here that I am an entrepreneur. I am unemployable. I am unemployable. You're not going to be able to pay me what I would want to be an employee. I'm reading a book called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. And one of the things he says is, if you're not where you want to be, start with where you are. I'm going to make it really simple. Do what you're doing to get to where you want to go. Always have your dream. And don't be afraid to dream big. Nature wants big dreamers, and nature wants speed. So get after it. If you've got a job, you're not happy in your job's not as productive, as rewarding as you want it to be, figure out what you want to do. And you talked about chasing your passion earlier. Find a way. Start off with a side hustle. Start off doing something. The direct selling business is great, A lot of people are moving into the real estate business. Real estate is, I don't see real estate or being a real estate agent as being that productive. Most of them are not very successful. Figure out where you are, figure out where you want to be, and figure out what it's going to take to get from where you are to where you want to be.
There you go. Jim, thanks so much for your time today. If my audience wanted to find more about what you're doing, I know you mentioned doing some syndications, vetting these operators who know what they're doing. What would be a good way that people could find you?
My website is ironmountaincapitalgroup.com. That's Iron Mountain and then capitalgroup.com. It's just right now, it's just a placeholder. We're building the website right now. My email address is james@jamesblakemore.com. Send me an email. I'm here to help people. I've been very blessed, Kenny, and I want to bless other people. I want to do as much as I can to give back. I'll be glad to talk to any of your audience.
Awesome. And I'll also get your contact info and put it in the show notes so that'll be a link as well.
Perfect.
Jim, thank you for your time today on the Invested Fathers podcast. A lot of good stories on what you've done to be where you are today, the highs and the lows, and really appreciate all the words of wisdom.
You're very welcome, Kenny. I'm sorry I couldn't speak from the point of view of a father, but what you see is what you get. Have a great day. You bet. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Invested Fathers podcast. If you liked this episode, we would love for you to click subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. We appreciate all of your hard work as a father and look forward to our next episode together.